The scientific name of the fifth arcanum of the tarot is Magister Arcanorium, Teacher of the Arcana, also the Great Hierophant, and the vulgar name is the Pope. The Hebrew letter is He, the numerical value 5, and the hieroglyph is breathing, the symbol of life. The picture for the fifth arcanum is a seated man in the robes of a high priest. His head is crowned with the two horns of Isis, with a full moon between them. This binary of horns is dominated by the cross of the Great Hierophant on the end of the scepter which he holds in his left hand, so that the cross is much higher than his head. The right hand is stretched above the heads of two figures kneeling before him. This is the sign of blessing, sometimes considered a mute one, and then it is a symbol of the initiatory silence. Sometimes the Hierophant expresses the blessing in words. In any case, this gesture is a sign expressing will. One of the two kneeling figures is white and the other black. Like the woman of the second arcanum, he sits between two columns, Jachin and Boaz. Here, as in the other arcanum, there is the binary of the columns, neutralized, in this case, by the man's figure. He is seated, a hint on passivity, the absorption of the wisdom of the binary. But he is still a man. That is, he is at the same time basically an active symbol, putting knowledge into practice in life. This element of the enlightened willpower, of the active authority, will be the basic idea of this fifth arcanum, representing the most mysterious sign, the human pentagram, figure 16. The ternary of the Great Hierophant's cross dominating the binary of horns gives us an important hint, so full of meaning. Here, the pentagram is upright, that is, with 3 points uppermost. You already know about the significance of its position. All these conditions, as expressed in symbols on the card of the fifth arcanum, remind us about initiation. Indeed, who would be the giver of initiation, if not our symbolical Great Hierophant? The two kneeling figures tell us that the pentagram, here the master of magic, is triumphant, together with all the powers of light, even over the forces of darkness, compelling them to serve his good aims. He wisely uses their temporary ignorance and the weakness arising from it. An intelligent use of even the actual weakness will allow them to reach the necessary karmic redemption, or liberation, much earlier. Returning to the symbolism of the fifth arcanum, I will say that breathing in this material, dense life, means the presence of the vital processes in organisms. From this is derived another title for this arcanum, the life. According to astrology, the corresponding symbol will be the zodiacal sign of the ram. When the sun is in the sign of the ram, then we know that it is the first month of spring, and spring is Yod's element in the yearly solar cycle. It is that which prepares life, as the first breath of that life. Those readers who are more acquainted with Hermetism may now pose me 1 or 2 reasonable questions. 1. In the formula of the dynamic processes, or Yod-He Vod-He, the He signifies the female principle. So what is there then in common between the female origin and life? 2. Why is the second arcanum, Beth, considered to be a female principle, and why is it connected with the fifth arcanum? What is the difference in coloring of both arcana? The first question will be answered by a short venture into the realm of Christian theosophy. The earlier centuries, 14th and 15th, as well as the more recent ones, 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. If, for every dynamic cycle, Yod-He Vod-He, a continuation for it can be found, coming from its second He, which becomes the Yod of the next cycle, then the picture may well be reversed, and the Yod of our primary cycle can therefore be imagined as the second He of some former cycle. Any search for the elements of that earlier cycle will be an ascending process in the chain of causality, and must lead us to the cognition of a Yod belonging to the preceding, older order of things. And then the same question might well arise again and again. The first cycle in the chain of causality, the first family of the quaternary type, the student already knows this expression, cannot consider itself as absolutely independent, that is, not having any prior elements in the former dynamic processes. This is because the beginning of all beginnings cannot have Yod as a name, because the latter is always an active principle, vitalized by the desire of the necessity of fecundation. But the absolute beginning, as we said before, must possess the attribute of all contentment and self-sufficiency. This absolutely primary principle must be androgynous, neutral, enclosing in it all the elements of the dynamic processes to which it may give birth. In order to be clear and to symbolize this beginning, we will place a point over the Yod of the first quaternary of the transcendental realm. This point will remind us about the great, the inaccessible, the infinitely homogeneous, the perfectly enlightened,